Listen, I advocated for debates on the Democratic side, of which we didn't have a real primary process, and I think the same holds true here. Nielsen said there were 67 million people that tuned into the last debate. If I'm running for president and I have the opportunity to talk to 67 million people and lay out my plan, let's do that. But for the Democrats to call the man a chicken is ridiculous, because we got too much on the line right now to play these kids' game. Tricks are for kids.
Dave, what's your read on how close the race is and what that means about what matters most for the Trump campaign? What do they have to hit most between now and 42 days from now?
Well, first of all, let me just say I totally agree with her. She hit it right on the nose, Chris. This is so important what Nina was just talking about. This is so important. The American people are demanding answers. That's all they want. They want to have a conversation with both candidates, whether it's in the debate format or not. But Vice President Harris has not had any press conference. She doesn't talk to reporters, and that's why she needs another debate. She's a little desperate. Look, she thought she was going to get this bounce. She didn't. You look at these polling numbers that you just showed today. Donald Trump is in a better position today than he was at 45 days out before 2016. The polling is going his way, and the undervote, which we can get a chance to talk about over the next 45 days, is going to come into play. So I would just submit to you, Donald Trump is out there like he is right now at this rally, talking about the economy, talking about energy, talking about inflation and the real cost to the American people. But he's also talking about foreign policy and getting out of these wars that Biden and Harris have started or gotten America into. He's going to continue to talk about the border and immigration. Those are the issues that the American people want to talk about. Well, they want to hear from, and that's the problem that Vice President Harris has.
Look, but there's an opportunity in it, Geraldo, right? Because Trump's talking about the problems. But to be fair, Harris is getting hit with a stick to offer solutions that he isn't. This guy's not spitting details every 2 seconds either on the issues that matter, but he's running a grievance election, Geraldo. And do you believe that this race is still Trump's to lose?
I do. I think that in recent week or so, he clearly has gotten the momentum. He survived more than just, Chris, the assassin's bullets. He has survived the barrage, the convicted felon, first convicted felon to run for office, hundreds of millions of dollars in fines, two impeachments. He's survived a lot. I don't think people are thinking about Israel right now, unless you happen to be Jewish or Arab, Palestinian specifically. I think that people are looking at him and they're feeling a confidence and an energy that the vice president is showing when she can in certain situations, but she has to, because she's not giving interviews. Why is she not giving interviews? Because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. She's not giving interviews because she's not going to sit opposite you and have you bust her chops about being the failed border czar. He's not debating her because he's not going to give her another shot at 67 million people to see him stumbling and fumbling and trying to do with bravado what he couldn't do with facts, taking debate every single time. So I think that what you're going to see is him continuing these rallies, the vice president continuing her rallies, and something's going to break. Someplace along the line, I'm not an expert in this, place along the line, people are going to say, aha, he's the one or she's the one. But as of right now, today, and as you correctly point out, Chris, this is a snapshot in time. When I take this picture, I see Trump returning to the White House.
I mean, look, in a race like this, and no disrespect to the people out there who are backing Harris or backing Trump, but this is a war of attrition, okay? This is not a battle of big ideas. This is not a battle of different but equally charismatic characters, you know, that overwhelm us. This is about the margins. Once again, the American people are picking which is worse. And there is something sad about that. No disrespect to all the teams involved.